Though no one knows the exact date and time of the second coming, God does not keep us in the dark about the way the world is progressing. The Bible tells us of certain signs that signal the nearness of Christ's return. In Matthew 24, the disciples asked Jesus, "Tell us, when shall these things be? And what shall be the sign of thy coming and of the end of the world?" Matthew 24:3. Jesus replies and says, "For many shall come in my name, saying, I am Christ, and shall deceive many." Matthew 24:5. "And many false prophets shall rise, and shall deceive many." Matthew 24:11. "For there shall arise false Christs and false prophets, and shall show great signs and wonders, insomuch that, if it were possible, they shall deceive the very elect. Behold, I have told you before. Wherefore, if they shall say unto you, Behold, he is in the desert, go not forth. Behold, he is in the secret chambers, believe it not." Matthew 24:24-26. Jesus stated that false prophets who will say that they prophesy in his name would appear on this earth. Read Matthew 7:15-23. These false prophets would be active in the end time, showing signs and wonders and trying to deceive even the elect. Matthew 24:24. Jesus gave this warning because a prophetic forgery would appear that would be in contrast to the genuine gift in the end times. It is good to look at a Bible topic such as this in order to realize how little we can say about it. The Old Testament highlights the constant conflict between false prophets and the prophets of the Lord. Distinguishing between them in the past was difficult, but it had to be done. The Israelites asked the Lord, "How shall we know the word which the Lord has not spoken?" Deuteronomy 18:21. John wrote to the church, "Beloved, do not believe every spirit, but test the spirits, whether they are of God, because many false prophets have gone out into the world." 1 John 4:1. The first rule of counterfeiting is to make the fake as close to the genuine as possible. People counterfeiting anything are going to make it as real as possible. And if true with something as worldly as cash, how much more so in the spiritual or religious realm? Unfortunately, as with everything else, the potential for fake and fraud abounds. And considering that issues in the spiritual realm have potentially eternal consequences, the question of who is a real prophet and who isn't shouldn't be taken lightly. Jesus, in the context of last days, warns about false prophets. Why warn about the false if a true prophet wasn't coming? Jesus didn't say not to believe anyone who claims to be a prophet. He said just don't believe the false ones. How then can we know a real from a fake? What does it mean to be a prophet? There is no one-size-fits-all description for what every prophet is like or what they are called to do. Here's how God can use ordinary people to do powerful things and how to test between true prophets and false prophets. When you hear the word prophet, what comes to mind? Do you think of a person with some kind of mystical powers that allow them to see the future? Or maybe your mind goes straight to the Bible, thinking of high-profile prophets like Daniel, John the Baptist, or Elijah. The word prophet probably isn't the one you use very often in a regular conversation, but as you read through the Bible, you'll come across numerous stories of everyday people, rich and poor, young and old, men and women, charismatic and shy, who were called upon by God to serve as prophets. But what is a prophet really? Do they all talk about the future? Do they have to be likable or influential? What's on the prerequisites list of becoming a prophet? The actual definition for prophet is simple, but serving in that role can mean many different things. is not all about proclaiming a prophecy or two in front of a group of people. Just as each human being is unique, each prophet is unique. And their God-led influence has accomplished amazing things throughout history. How does one tell the difference between true and false prophets? Since this topic is very important, the Lord gave His people some guidance. Fulfilled prophecies. Moses told the Israelites, when a prophet speaks in the name of the Lord, if the thing does not happen or come to pass, that is the thing which the Lord has not spoken. Deuteronomy 18:22 and Jeremiah 28:8-9. At first glance, this is a good test, yet it is often difficult to apply. In order to know whether someone is a true prophet, we have to wait for the fulfillment of the prophecy he or she spoke about. In order to help their hearers, prophets sometimes gave within their long-term prophecies a short-term one that was quickly fulfilled. Jeremiah 28:16-17. Yet the predictions of a false prophet could also be fulfilled. Deuteronomy 13:1-2. This suggests that this test is not sufficient in itself to know whether a prophet is from God. Correct theology. This test assumes that people have already received messages from the Lord and that they were able to use them to grade new revelations. For example, since God's law prohibits worshipping idols, a prophet who led others to worship other gods would be a false prophet. Deuteronomy 13:2. The message from a new prophet had to agree with God's former revelations. Isaiah 30:8. The people hearing the new revelation had to have a deep personal knowledge of God's word. This allowed them to use that knowledge to test the truthfulness of the new revelation. In the New Testament, God's revelation through Jesus became the central test with the written word to show whether a prophet was true. 1 John 4:2-3 and John 17:17. Although this test is more difficult to falsify, it can be falsified. The Apostle Paul wrote about false prophets transforming themselves into apostles of Christ. And no wonder, for Satan himself transforms himself into an angel of light. 2 Corinthians 11:13-14. Yet those who know the truth as it is in Jesus will not be deceived. Ethical test. False prophets do not live up to God's laws and do not clearly speak out against sin. The prophet Ezekiel accused false prophets, "You have strengthened the hands of the wicked, so that he does not turn from his wicked way to save his life." Ezekiel 13:22. False prophets were also arrogant. 2 Peter 2:18, deceitful, Acts 13:6-10, and often preached only for pay. 2 Peter 2:3-13. Their lives were not in line with God's revealed word. People can give the impression of being holy, even saying all the right things. Yet Jesus said they are like wolves dressed in sheep's clothing. Matthew 7:15. By their fruit, Jesus himself established this test. He said, "You will know them by their fruits." Every good tree bears good fruit, but a bad tree bears bad fruit. Matthew 7:16-17. It is close to the third test, but it goes beyond it by asking, what are the results of the ministry of a person who claims to be a prophet? Does his or her ministry build up the church? This test requires time, but lies and deception are sooner or later revealed. We have to be open to the possibility that God still speaks to us through His prophets. But in order to identify a true prophet, we should know and understand the Scriptures. We should use God's inspired word to test the teachings and the lifestyle of the person who claims to be a true prophet. Finally, we should not hastily accept somebody's claims. We must allow time for the action of the new prophet to show what kind of person he or she is. Testing the spirits takes time, prayer, and knowledge of what God has already revealed to us.